Was Shigaraki truly quirkless, and did All For One give a young Tenko Shimura his first ever quirk without anyone realizing it? Today we are going to be going over the theory of did All For One give Tenko Shimura, aka Shigaraki, DECAY. Now I will be discussing a very small scene in the manga that never got adapted into season 5 of the anime during Shigaraki's backstory that plays a major role in today's theory, and interestingly enough, Dabi and his past is key in solving this grand mystery. So yes, manga spoilers ahead. Now, when we first see Shigaraki's full backstory in the My Villain Academia arc, unlike what was shown in the anime, his backstory actually opens with a tall man in a suit and a hat with his face obscured, dropping off a young Tenko Shimura at his home. If we look at the two side by side, he looks very similar to All For One in design, mostly because they both are tall and have suits on, plus we never fully get to see All For One's real face, and neither do we get to see the tall man's face either. This panel is very important because Tenko's mom is apologizing to the man for Tenko bothering him, and right after this, Tenko gets punished by his dad for playing and pretending to be a hero outside of the house. Then what seems to be a couple of days later, on a sweltering day, Tenko finds out that his grandmother, that being Nana Shimura, was a hero. Tenko starts manifesting his quirk when we are specifically told that he is 5 years old and still hasn't manifested a quirk, meaning that he could have possibly have been quirkless. Then we see his father beats him for allegedly being the one who snuck into his study. I'm looking at you, Hana, you dirty snake. And of course, later that day, his quirk fully manifests and he ends up decaying his whole family. Yeah, I bet you really regretted being a rat now, huh, Hana? Anyways, a few things that happened in Shigaraki's backstory didn't quite add up, like how Tenko was 5 years old and hadn't manifested a quirk yet, when we know quirks manifest in children at the age of 4, then suddenly manifesting a quirk a couple of days or so after the tall man drops him off. Also, the unexplained cause for Tenko's allergies that made him itch so badly around that time, which carried on for years, making it seem like his quirk didn't fit his body, similar to that of Aoyama. Plus, I found it really odd that his backstory would just start right when this tall man finished dropping off Tenko at his house. It's almost as if it was done on purpose and not by Horikoshi, but by the tall man. As we know, All For One all throughout the series has been shown to always be at least 10 steps ahead of everyone. Whatever happens in the story always seems to end in his favor, almost as if it was always a part of his grand plan, and as we've learned in chapter 335, that is because he has thought of every possible outcome and makes it so everything ultimately makes it towards his goal. In the series, All For One somehow gets his hands on information regarding UA due to him planting a traitor in the school. All For One got thrown into Tartarus and acted as if it was just a part of his grand plan. Then he eventually escapes after the Paranormal Liberation War. All For One even knew who Tenko was and his relation to Nana Shimura before he even ran into him. And the reason we even know that he knew who Tenko was before running into him was the fact that when All For One finds Tenko under the overpass in one of Shigaraki's little flashbacks during season 3, or during the raid on the villain's hideout, the first words that we hear coming out of All For One's mouth in the flashback were, "No one came to save you. That must have hurt, right, Tenko Shimura?" And that line right there just screams to me that this was all a part of his plan. Plus, it always just felt weird how All For One coincidentally found a young Tenko Shimura stranded all alone after he had killed his family and had all of society turn their backs on him while also knowing who he is. And I believe that All For One, having already known that Tenko was a quirkless child who just so happened to be related to Nana Shimura, and most likely knowing that his father Kotaro hated Hiro heroes due to Nana being one and leaving him at a young age, All For One devised a scheme or a plan where he secretly gave Tenko DECAY without anyone realizing it, purposely brought Tenko home, saying something along the lines that he was being bothered by Tenko playing heroes outside, which would set off the series of unfortunate events in Shigaraki, aka Tenko Shimura's life, where in Shigaraki's origins, we see his father Kotaro beating Tenko for pretending to play as a hero outside, as well as Tenko getting beat again when he learns the truth about his grandmother being a hero, which in turn had him build up this hatred and resentment towards his father as well as his family for just standing there and letting it all happen. Then Tenko suddenly manifesting his quirk at the age of 5, when we were specifically told that kids all get their quirks by the age of 4. After all of this built up in anger and resentment towards his whole family, they all get decayed by him, leaving him wandering the city sad and alone and in need of help, but nobody, not even a hero, came to aid him, so he ends up forming this massive hatred towards all of hero society, thus leading to All For One pulling up on a sad, angry, lonely Tenko Shimura and taking him in to further groom his hatred as well as making him be his successor, the symbol of fear. And so far the evidence we have for this theory are the similarities in appearance between the tall man and All For One having the ability to steal and grant quirks, then Tenko, who was said to be possibly quirkless, coincidentally manifesting a quirk at the odd age of 5 instead of 4, Tenko manifesting said quirk not that long after being dropped off by the tall man, Tenko's unexplained allergies making him itchy, and All For One knowing who Tenko is, presumably when meeting him for the first time. Now, interestingly enough, in the case of the true identity of the tall man being All For One, Dabi plays a significant role in this theory, which I believe is the final nail in the coffin for proving that All For One is indeed the tall man in Shigaraki's backstory and had actually given Shigaraki DECAY. So in chapter 350, we learned exactly what happened to Dabi on Sekoto Peak. In Dabi's flashback, we see the aftermath of Dabi losing control over his quirk and bursting into flames, where we see him struggling to try and make it towards the water, but sadly burned to a crisp and perished before fully entering the water. And here on this panel, we see All For One emerging from Dabi's blue flames in the background, where surprise surprise, All For One is wearing his typical suit and tie, but this time with a hat, making him look nearly identical to the tall man in Shigaraki's origin story. To me, this panel alone sealed the deal for me that All For One is indeed the tall man and had given Shigaraki his quirk, because this is the second time in someone's origin story where a tall man in a suit and tie with a hat makes an appearance. And in Dabi's flashback, it's pretty much confirmed that All For One is the one who found Dabi burnt on Sekoto Peak. Then that could only mean that this tall man in Shigaraki's origin was the one who found Tenko Shimura outside and had given him his quirk, which would explain the sudden manifestation of Tenko's quirk at the age of 5, the unexplained itchiness caused by his quirk from it most likely not being suited for his body, similar to that of Aoyama, and why Shigaraki's origin specifically starts off with the tall man dropping off Tenko at his home, which would make sense as to why this scene was cut from the anime, since it would probably be way too obvious that All For One is the tall man. Now that's all I really have to say when it comes to this theory, but if All For One truly gave Tenko DECAY, then Shigaraki's whole backstory is gonna be a hell of a lot more darker than before, because then the kid would have basically been manipulated into doing everything that All For One wanted from the beginning. With that said, let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on today's theory. Do you believe All For One gave Tenko DECAY, and do you believe the tall man's true identity is All For One? Let me know everything in the comment section below, and maybe throw me one of your theories down there too, just in case yours is a little bit different. Like always, thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure sure to Detroit, smash that like button below, as well as share this video with your friends. It greatly helps the channel out a ton. And if you are new to the channel and you like My Hero Academia content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel as well as hit that notification bell to join the Kitoroki Hero Academia to become my hero. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.